How did you start writing?
Yes, writing was primarily my thing. I started with poetry during my middle school years. In high school, I was writing nice stories. I was writing compositions. My literature class was always 100. My literature teacher encouraged me. He said, "You will be the second Ömer Seyfettin from Gönen." But I didn't believe it at the time. When I went to university, I was reading a lot of books initially. I was always using the library of Buka Faculty of Education at the university, and that's where my idea of writing a novel developed. I wrote my first novel, Misty Lake. After that, in 2006, I received the Ömer Seyfettin Story Award. After that, other awards followed. These encouraged me. And of course, I also started writing in an academic sense.
Was writing your dream, or did it develop over time?
Actually, my primary school teacher wanted me to become a painter because I really had an inclination towards art. Writing was not my dream. Initially, I wanted to be a journalist, but my father insisted that I should become a teacher, and I persistently wrote down teaching and became a teacher. As I said, writing developed later, but I had the talent. I was writing poetry, stories, and I tried writing a novel. I love this field because I feel at ease when I write. This activity makes me happy.
Which is your favorite book and why?
Actually, it wouldn't be right to separate my books because they are like my children. But of course, I enjoyed writing The Red Minibus because I told my father's life story. I was deeply affected when my father passed away in 2015. I felt I owed a debt of gratitude to my father. I said I must repay it, and I wrote The Red Minibus. This is a very important book for me in a special personal sense. However, the book that introduced me to academic circles is I Was Born in Gönen. It became a biographical story of Ömer Seyfettin. Writing a biographical story is difficult. Why? Because you are touching people's lives. You are writing about a person's life. You can't really stray too far from the events in a biography. I couldn't imagine while writing this novel, because you are writing a fantasy novel. If you can enter realms of imagination, it's very difficult in those biographies. It is necessary to base it on documents, because writing the life of a writer like Ömer Seyfettin, who is well known and highly regarded in Turkey, is very difficult. I could have been criticized at any moment. However, I believe I succeeded in this because the book was appreciated and was chosen as Eskadar's Novel of the Year in 2022. This, of course, encouraged me academically because I was no longer participating in competitions, and this award came on its own. I consider this as an achievement.
Do you make a plan before you start writing?
Yes, actually, I first create a draft in my mind. I build the skeleton, but improvisation, they happen too. In some parts, new things come to my mind. I can write some things spontaneously. In fact, while writing one novel, another novel can emerge. I can set it aside and start another novel with that file. For example, I was writing a mythological novel called Geyikli Dağ. I was going to talk about the fourth pilgrimage expedition, which also covers the pilgrimage journeys, focusing on Istanbul. Meanwhile, the novel Bandırma Palace developed. For example, from a follower of mine in Italy, in the city of Puglia, there are houses similar to the Harran plains. They resemble the earthen houses in Adiyaman. There, a blue umbrella that was shared came to the forefront. I wanted to write The Man with the Blue Umbrella, and I started. I wrote it because it was for a black and white photograph. Only the blue umbrella stood out. I wanted to create a sense of mystery. However, I later changed the name of the novel to Bandırma Palace. There's only the man with blue hair, a theatrical child in the novel. The events revolve around him.
What was the most challenging thing while writing?
Yes, the most challenging thing for me while writing is biographical novels. Because I have a bit of a perfectionist personality. I want everything to be good. From punctuation to spelling errors. Biographies are exhausting to write. Apart from that, I can dream in my other novels. I don't know if I would venture into biographies again, because I also received offers to write about other authors. But I said I wouldn't get into biographies again, because The Omar Seyfettin novel took 4 years of my life, but still, sometimes new ideas can emerge. I might write what I said I wouldn't. Still, I leave the door open.
When writing a character, how much of yourself do you incorporate into them?
Actually, we incorporate a lot. Well, in the novel Hoisahechisi, while describing Rasim A of the village, I included my own life and my observations of his life. In the Ömer Seyfettin novel, Ömer Seyfettin's life, of course, is well known. He was born in Gunnan. His father was a captain and he went to Inebolu. From there, he moved to Ayanchik, then went to Istanbul, and so on. You know, there is very little information in biographies. There was also very little information about his childhood. Of course, I added some things from my own childhood, values, mythology. I included the values, cultural values of Gonan. I included its historical places. For example, I included Seherhan, also Alakoluk Castle, even the King of Macedonia, Alexander Bridge. I also included the Pigeon Bridge in the novel. You know, I want it to be a bit mythological. In fact, beyond that, one of the important historical battles between the Persians and the King of Macedonia. For example, I incorporated the Battle of Granicus, which took place at Biga, Gümüşçay, into my novel. Ömer Seyfettin became associated with this area. I give a lot to my heroes like this. The aunt at the Stork Mansion, Aunt Hikabiye, was actually my own aunt. Her story, it came to me and I won the Çorum Mahmut Taner Oylu story competition with this story. Sometimes novels, stories, people come to me, I can say.
If you were young again today, would you still become a writer?
Yes, I would, because I feel at ease when I write. It motivates me. Writing is a therapy for me, because I dream, I imagine. I distance myself from my problems. I take journeys to different worlds when I write. I think I would still become a writer, but I need to have a profession first, because writing is not yet a profession.
What do you think is the most difficult and the most beautiful aspect of writing for young people?
Yes, sometimes I also write novels for children. I also address children at times. Of course, pedagogy is important here, because I have an educator's personality, and when writing children's books, it's necessary to pay attention to their age group. It's important to pay attention to pedagogy. I give importance to these things. It needs to match the level of that age. I also have books aimed at young people. We might be caught between adult and children's books, but I also write encouraging and motivating books for them.